Welcome to a Holy Priest Beginner's Guide. I think this is going to be a great video for anybody who's getting into healing for the first time in World of Warcraft and wants a good starting point, as I think Holy Priest in particular is the best at teaching some of the foundational skills of healing in World of Warcraft. This video is going to be mostly focused on Delve in Mythic Plus style content, as that tends to be the easiest to get into as a beginning player, and all of those skills as you get better at them will eventually translate into raiding. So if you're someone who's really interested in getting into raiding, well, this isn't going to directly teach you how to raid. These core skills will be the foundation of your raiding gameplay as well. Grab one of the talent builds from down below. There are two, and I'll explain the differences between them later, but realistically, you can grab either one and you'll be fine. And we're going to walk through the spells and how Holy Priest works. Now, the reason the video is titled that you can get into healing with Holy Priest is that it teaches triage better than any other healer. Triage is the fancy word for who can we save, who can't we save, and in what order should we save people. This concept starts remarkably easy in that my recommendation is go heal the lowest health target, right? They're the one who's most at risk to dying next, right? However, when you get into higher level play, this conversation turns into who is being threatened, who will die next, who isn't doing mechanics, who has the most health, who doesn't press their defensives. It can get incredibly deep, and sometimes you're going to be looking at enemy cast bars, figuring out who might be going down next, or you might have learned in this dungeon in particular, the tank is going to get blasted in this section, so you want to keep a special eye on them and try not to let your other DPS fall over, but you might need to babysit your tank as they go through an extraordinary amount of pain. So triage is a complicated topic, but it all comes down to seeing more healing and doing more healing and learning to be efficient. The final thing we'll talk about is efficiency in WoW is a very funny word when it comes to healing. Efficiency can be many things, from not burning too much mana and healing people effectively, burning your mana bar at the right time to get the healing done that is absolutely required, using the most out of your talents to get the most out of your spells. Some of these spells seem very weak on first glance, right? Like, oh, it only does that much healing. Is it that good of a move? But as you start to layer in all of the things that make it special in the talent tree, it'll really come to life. So we're going to go over the spells, we're going to do a walkthrough, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll be more confident in being able to start your Holy Priest journey. And if you're leveling, you can kind of start the journey early, as you're not going to have all of these tools available to you when you're leveling. So just keep that in mind. If you're like a level 10 Holy Priest trying to jump into a dungeon, you might genuinely only have like one or two moves, and that's totally okay. Now, the two builds down below are Archon and Oracle. If you don't want to think about it, the Archon build will look a little intimidating at first, but I actually think it is the easiest for new players. Oracle will have less buttons, but this one is actually, I think, technically harder. It requires you to use the buttons that you have with a lot more precision and with a lot more knowledge about what you can do on Holy Priest. So feel free to grab either one, and as we go through the moves, I'll mention if something is more useful on Archon or on Oracle if there's any kind of important information, with a section towards the end that will be dedicated for talking about the two builds. Before we talk about any heals, let's go over our mastery. A reminder that if you're new to WoW, one of your secondary stats is called mastery. Every spec in the game gets a mastery, and it's different for every single spec. So on Holy Priest, your direct healing spells heal for an additional mastery percentage over 4 seconds. It also increases the healing of your renew by mastery percentage. You're going to see some players, if you ever do your research, lean heavily into their mastery, or maybe they don't lean into their mastery at all. Regardless of whether you stat for this or not, you're still using it. All my tooltips are going to be located in the top right if you're looking for them, and we're going to go a little quick here, so feel free to stop the video and run it back if you need to hear me say something again. And just one final tip before we get started. If you're ever in your talent tree or your spell book, where's my spell book? Why didn't it open? And you type in something like, oh, flash heal. What's flash heal? Every instance of flash heal showing up will end up on your screen. And this is exceptionally helpful when you're in the talent tree, because I can type in flash heal, hit the enter key, and you're going to see all the interaction points on my tree with that magnifying glass that popped up for every single time flash heal shows up. This is incredibly useful if you see a word pop up and you're like, what does that mean? Like, what's a cosmic ripple? What's a surge of light? And you can type that in and figure out what talent it is, or if it pops up in any other special places. And when you're learning a new spec, and this is just across all of WoW, I highly recommend that every week or so you read through the talents again. I know that might sound a little boring, but every time you go through it, you'll have a better understanding of what all the words mean and their interactions. You can go through and check what those interactions mean. Now, let us finally begin with the walkthrough. Starting with Flash Heal, this is a short, really fast casting move that heals for an amount. It's nothing too special, I promise you. It's the standard heal of the game. It's a little mana inefficient in that if we only press Flash Heal, you'll notice that our mana bar starts to dwindle a little bit. It's not wasting your whole mana bar, but it is something you need to think about. But there's a lot, and I mean a lot of talents working with Flash Heal to make it stronger. Because this is one of your most important buttons, I am going to run through quite a lot of the talents. So, starting off, we have Surge of Light. Surge of Light says that your healing spells and smite have an 8% chance to make your next Flash Heal instant cast and cost 50% less mana, and it stacks up to 2 times. I'm going to do my absolute best to get a proc here for you so you can see it quickly. Every time I've recorded this, it has been the slowest process imaginable. I've recorded this video 4 times. When you get a Surge of Light proc, the icon for Flash Heal will glow. Please don't ask why I have 3 of these on my bar, and you'll get this little streak on your HUD as well. This means that the next one is instant cast, and yeah, half off in the mana department. Don't be worried about holding on to these for too long. If you see it and someone needs to be healed, you might as well do an instant cast heal and get the job done. But it's more interesting than just that. Surge of Light occurs up to 50% more often based on your missing mana, which is right below that talent. This means that as you start to burn your mana bar up, you're also going to be saving on mana because they are a mana positive move when it's half off. So that means that, yeah, if you start burning through your mana bar and you're a little worried about it, you're going to have something kind of playing to keeping your mana bar running a little bit longer. So don't lose hope if you're below 50% mana or 20% mana. You have a genuine chance to be saving more mana, and you might be able to last just a little bit longer to get through whatever ordeal is going on in the dungeon. Furthermore, there's a bunch of different talents that augment how the Flash Heal works itself. Trail of Light is a very common one. 25% of healing done by Flash Heal is replicated to the previous target you heal with those spells. So you can use this to heal multiple targets back to back, and you'll leave that trail of light. And you'll see as I go down the line of training dummies here that I'm always healing the one that I last clicked on. You can also do this between 2 targets. So let's say I click on me, and then I click on this dummy, and then I click on me, and then I click on this dummy. This could be good for healing through something where, say, a boss is targeting 2 of us. The 2 of us are taking a lot of damage. Well, I can keep flip-flopping who I'm hitting Flash Heal on and get quite a lot of extra healing out of the both of us. So Trail of Light's a really useful one. The only other key ones I want to go over here are if you're on Oracle, as of recording this video, Desperate Time says that healing is increased by 20% on friendly targets at or below half health, which is very useful, so you can make that Flash Heal very powerful. But then in addition, Twist of Fate. After damaging or healing a target below 35% in health, you gain 10% increased damage and healing for 8 seconds. That's actually pretty powerful, because you are going to be doing damage on Holy Priest. If an enemy ever enters that execute range, you gain the healing and the damage buff. If your teammate ever falls really low on health and you heal them, you gain the damage and the healing buff. So when you start combining all of these things, you get quite a lot of value out of your Flash Heals, especially when they're used on players low on health. And even the Archon build that currently doesn't go into Desperate Times is still going to get a lot of benefit out of things such as Twist of Fate. So if you want to explore Flash Heal more, I highly recommend it. Well, this is not the last time we'll be talking about it in this video. We have sort of 3 core healing spells on Holy Priest, and Flash Heal is the first one. The next one is Prayer of Mending. I do want to note that Archon builds, you're going to be pressing this button, but probably not for the healing. The healing is significantly weaker on Archon, and even on Oracle, it doesn't seem very good at first, but it has interactions with our Apex talents, which are these fancy talents down here that we certainly grab, but also that Prayer of Mending is working in the background, and anything working kind of hands off without your interaction doing work for you is genuinely pretty strong. I always say background healing is busted. We never say no to things working in the background for us, and it's mana positive, so it's always worth sending out, especially if you have a free moment. But Oracle players, I'm telling you, this is part of your bread and butter, and you're going to be pressing it all the time. Prayer of Mending puts a ward on a target. That ward will heal the target when they take damage, and then send it to another ally nearby. these things will be bouncing around all the time. You'll get a ton of them out. On Oracle, it does a bunch of other things too. When you send one out to a primary target, it'll also send one out to an additional ally. And when these wards fall off, they're also going to continue bouncing around and just lose a charge. When they have more charges, they heal more. When you throw one on someone, they instantly heal for a pretty large amount. It's just shy of a flash heal. So you can use this to instantly spot heal someone and get some healing going in the background afterwards. And if there's like AoE damage happening, right, everyone in the party is taking damage, throwing some Prayer of Mendings out into the wind is a great idea, as they'll just keep bouncing around the party healing while you're pressing your other buttons trying to keep people alive. Prayer of Mending, whenever it heals, whether it's a large amount or a small amount, has a chance of giving you this Apex talent, and I will talk about this more later, but this is going to upgrade your flash heal to Benediction, which is essentially the same move, but it heals 30% more and causes a Cosmic Ripple, which we'll be getting into momentarily. Cosmic Ripple is not something you have to overthink as well. So having a fatter flash shield because you healed with Prayer of Mending is great, and we love having it. The proc rate on this can feel a little low, but there's a lot more going on here, and you're going to be seeing this move a whole lot more. So Prayer of Mending, very strong talent, very strong ability, especially when you're talented for it. Again, Archon players, if it feels like it's not doing a whole lot, I promise you it's still worth getting out because of that Apex talent. The final very important move to talk about is called Prayer of Healing. Prayer of Healing isn't currently taken on the Oracle build. However, I wouldn't be shocked if at some time in the future, Prayer of Healing is taken on Oracle, so Oracle players will still want to pay attention. This is a powerful heal that heals the primary target that you select and forward injured allies within 40 yards for an amount. It's a relatively slow casting spell, and it's not very mana efficient. I'll just start spamming it here for you. It's a little slow, and it really does chunk your mana bar. So what's the point of this move? Well, it heals everyone in the area, right? That should be good in its own right, but it's not too powerful with no powering up. It can get the job done, but there's more under the hood on this spell as well. First of all, you have a talent that makes it so that the primary target is healed more. This means it can play into your triage, so if the tank is lower than everyone else, or one of your DPS has just gotten slapped in the face with a large move, you could put the Prayer of Healing on them to give them a little bit more of a boost while still healing up your team, which is pretty powerful. A lot of these talents do things like reduce the mana cost, get more healing out of it, crit rates, la-da-da-da-da. The most important here is Lightweaver. Lightweaver states that when you flash heal, you will reduce the cast time of your next Prayer of Healing by 30% and increase its healing done by 18%, which is quite a large amount. This can stack up to 4 charges, and these charges will last about 20 seconds, although you can refresh them by simply casting another flash heal. Lightweaver is what makes Prayer of Healing so strong, because 30% faster and 18% stronger is no joke. You're going to be casting flash heal a whole lot, as it's a relatively efficient spell. Prayer of Healing is on my C4 button right here, and in the corner you'll see this 4. That means I have 4 procs or 4 stacks of Lightweaver. So now you'll notice I cast significantly faster, and we're getting way more healing out of that move. Also note that the tooltip does technically update with the faster cast time. 1.1 second cast time is the same speed right now as my flash heal at my current haste value. So this talent's putting in a whole lot of work for us. On Archon as well, when you get a Surge of Light proc for your flash heal to be instant, well, you can use that on your Prayer of Healing as well. This will also make the move cost half mana, which makes it, I think, almost mana positive, or definitely mana positive. The one trapping that I find a lot of new players get into, though, is that they only use Prayer of Healing. Prayer of Healing in desperate times, or when fully powered up, is an extraordinarily powerful move, and I like to use it whenever there's 3 or 4 or 5 people hurting. However, if there's 2 people hurting, a good Prayer of Healing can still do some work, so long as you have procs on it or Lightweaver stacks that you're willing to use. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a waste. So try not to over-rely on Prayer of Healing, and actually getting used to saving it for when you really want to use it, or when it's extremely convenient to heal everyone up and can save you some trouble. It's a really good idea. So get comfortable using this move, but I don't want to see you overusing it, as you'll start really burning through your mana bar and not using your other resources. And there's a lot of other resources here that will go to very good use. One thing I forgot to mention is one of the best parts about Prayer of Healing is that you can stack it up 4 times, right? Well, I sometimes use this to heal through a major mechanic. I should have some footage on screen of Algathar Academy where during a boss fight, there's this damage event where 3 people get targeted, they take a large amount of damage, and they drop bombs, and then we all get knocked back. This happens every other version of this mechanic, but that's a lot of damage into another round of large damage. So a lot of the times, I'll pop a cooldown, use my flash shield to get 4 charges of Prayer of Healing, and as the mechanic hits, I just slam those Prayer of Healings back to back to keep the party alive and make my life a little bit easier afterwards so that I can top them off before the next big hit. This is a really important piece of advice. I just want to make sure I fit it in here before we go on to the next spell. Now, in order to talk about the rest of our healing kit and how to heal people, we need to talk about damage. And trust me when I say this will make sense, but I always get a lot of commenters that say, oh, healer damage doesn't matter, or you don't need to know how to do damage as a healer. I think you do. Now, when you're first learning, no, any damage you do is a bonus and we're happy to have you. But as you start really getting into this game, no, healers doing damage does contribute a lot. In coordinated groups with really strong players, the healer damage doesn't mean a whole lot. But more than often when I run dungeons, the healers doing damage, the healers putting in the work as well, whenever they have the time to, does shave seconds and sometimes minutes off of a timer. And Mythic Plus being a timed event, that's a pretty big deal. Also, killing bosses quicker, you might be able to save people's lives if, say, they get put in a cage or they get trapped and you need to break the cage. Hey, you know what? Doing damage will help your team get that done faster. So it is important to know. But again, don't try to overwhelm yourself with damage at first. Thankfully, Holy Priest damage is extremely easy to do, and I will think most of you won't have too much of a problem with this, especially as you get more comfortable with the game. But this does play very nicely back into our healing, so I have to go over it first. So let's start with my favorite move, Holy Fire. This is a 10-second cooldown move that'll strike the target for damage, do damage to everything around the target, and then put a small damage over time on them, and ignore every tentacle you see. That's either a trinket of mine or a neck piece of mine or something, but it ain't for you. Don't worry about it. Holy Fire is your most important button if you want to do damage. So just putting this on cooldown when you have a free moment is great, and I'm happy you're helping. Like that's good enough for most beginners. But it gets a little more complicated in just a moment. Smite is our single target damaging button. You could just press this, ta-da, it does damage and actually does quite a lot of damage. Smite, you can press forever. It's always available to you. It's very useful. Do note that all of your damaging spells as a healer, they're really low mana cost. You will always regenerate mana while casting because the amount of mana you get per second is much, much larger than the amount you're spending on damage. For comparison, right, Flash heals 6,162 mana, where Smite is 500, right? Holy Fire, 600 mana, ooh. So feel free to press your damage buttons. You will be naturally regenerating mana while you are using them. They're quite helpful. Now there's one other move, it's Holy Nova. If you want to ignore this one while you're learning, feel free. You have to run into melee for it. But Holy Nova does damage to everyone around you. This is useful, I think, at 4 targets and up. If there's like 20 or 30 enemies around you for whatever reason, this move is disgusting. Like, you'll genuinely be blown away by how much damage you're doing. It also does a little bit of healing, but this ain't anything to write home about, you know what I mean? So here's your little rotation. Get Holy Fire on cooldown, then in single target and up to 3 targets, hit Smite. If you're in 4 targets or more and you want, run up and press Holy Nova. If you really don't want to run up and press Holy Nova, just continue pressing Smite until Holy Fire is off cooldown. Ta-da! You're done. That's the whole damage profile. Now there's one more button, but that button is called a holy word. And this is where we can bring into the healing side of this. You have 3 holy words: Chastise, Serenity, and Sanctify. Although do note Sanctify is currently being replaced by another talent, but I will go over it. All of these moves will summon for you an Idol of Naru, a divine image, which I like to call Paper Ghost Buddy. The Paper Ghost Buddy exists for 12 seconds, and if you use another spell, instead of creating another divine image, it'll simply power up your previous one. And if you want a technical piece of data, these stacks will fall off individually, so it'll be like 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack, and then 3 stack, 2 stack, 1 stack. When you have an Idol of Naru out, it'll follow up any of your healing spells or any of your damage spells with one of its own. Just note that it's not copying your spell, it's just kind of throwing an equivalent potency move out. And so if you heal a target, it'll follow up the heal. If you damage a target, it'll follow up with damage. And this works for all of your spells. It's not following up with a copy of the spell. It's just following up with some equivalent potency based on spell modifier, whatever. It's always a weaker version of whatever you just did. So let's go over these holy words and what they do for us. The first of which is holy word chastise. This will chastise the target for a large amount of damage and then incapacitate them for 4 seconds. This is sort of like a micro stun. If they take damage, they'll be knocked out of the incapacitate. And note that while this can technically stop a spell cast, it does not qualify as an interrupt skill. Those are specifically things that turn off a school of magic. And if you play DPS or tank, you're going to learn all about them. And maybe they'll give them back to us healers one day. But for now, all you have to know is that this is a nice way to quickly stop an attack briefly and summon one of your divine images. So hit chastise, you'll strike the target, and then you'll also notice that your holy fire button is now glowing. This means you have instant cast holy fires you can spend, which makes doing damage even easier. All of your holy fires, your smites, and your holy novas, even if they don't connect, will still reduce the cooldown of chastise. This means that if you're just stuck doing damage, let's say there's like no healing going on and you're just blasting the end of a mob, well, guess what? You can keep this Idol of Naru running for seemingly ever. So look, it's about to come off cooldown, I hit chastise, and here we go, we're back in it. All of the holy words have a corresponding move that cools them down. And so you are encouraged to do damage and do healing with them, as you're going to cool them down, and you're also going to boost all of your healing and your damage when they're out. So I like to refer to the holy words as kickstarts. You use them to kickstart your damage or kickstart your healing. And because your damage can convert into your healing, because chastise will also summon a Naru, this means that you can go from damage and immediately go to healing, or go from healing and immediately swap to damage. One of the benefits to Holy Priest is that it doesn't take much time at all to swap from doing one to the other. So this can be extremely useful. While chastise is a really fun move and it's really good for your damage and it's good for your healing, let's talk about the actual holy words that do some healing. Holy Word Serenity is a max of 2 charge move with a 40 to 45 second cooldown depending on the talents that we've taken. This is roughly double a flash heal. There's obviously a lot more going on under the hood, but yeah, it's instant cast and it will just slam someone with a large amount of health. If you're on Archon, note that this is also going to cast Holy Word Sanctify for you, which is your AoE version of the spell. So when you cast a Serenity, you'll notice that there's some AoE healing during that, and that's because of the talent Ultimate Serenity, which means that Serenity is not just cooled with Flash Heal, so you can cool it down and get more charges by healing people, but your Prayer of Healing will also affect Serenity. Oracle users, this is not the case for you. Only Flash Heal will cool down Holy Word Serenity. But again, that's why it's so nice for kickstarting. I can hit my Serenity cast, and then I can start casting my Flash Heals, and I have an Idol of Naru helping me out while I cool down and get my charges of Serenity back. I'm almost back to 2 charges in the short time I've been showing this off. So extremely useful move. Whenever you see someone get low, you can start with a Serenity. Oh, your tank just took a bazillion damage? Hit them with a Serenity. Later, you're going to learn about a combo called Guardian Spirit into Serenity, and it's incredible at just instantly picking up a player's health bar and filling it all the way to full. So highly, highly recommend to get comfortable with Serenity, and don't be scared of using these. You will save them for a rainy day if, say, you know there's a major mechanic coming up and you have to hold the charges of this for a little bit. But don't feel bad about using these often. I do very frequently. Holy Word Sanctify, if you're playing on Oracle, is a 40-second recharge move with 2 charges that heals a very small amount for 5 targets. And yeah, it's a little pitiful at first. Like, that's less than a flash heal, that's less than your Prayer of Mending instant heal on Oracle, so what gives? There's a couple of talents here that are really working for us. First of all, Renew is a heal over time that we used to actually have as a button. It's now only a passive, but Lasting Word says that our Holy Word Serenity will apply 17 seconds of a Renew, and Sanctify will apply 8.4 seconds. So on its own, Sanctify isn't that pretty of a move. It's not doing a whole lot for us. However, given it puts this heal over time on everyone, well, okay, that's not bad, but there's more. Not only does your Prayer of Mending have a chance to leave one of these as well on the target, we also get 10% more healing on targets with Renew. This means that you can use Sanctify just as a cooldown to kickstart your healing. You're not going to be cooling it down anytime soon, but by dropping this on the party, maybe even 2 of them on the party, you can get to healing and do quite a lot of healing straight away. And that's a really, really good feeling. It'll save your day multiple times. So think about Sanctify as a way to kickstart all of your healing, and it's just a 40-second cooldown move that can really power up your healing, giving you extra procs of your Idols of Naru, your divine image. Now it's time we finally talked about 2 other parts of the kit. Let's go over Cosmic Ripples. Whenever Holy Word Serenity or Holy Word Sanctify finish their cooldown, you emit a burst of light that heals up to 5 injured allies within 40 yards for a small amount. I just want to note, the Divine Ripple or the Cosmic Ripple, excuse me, doesn't look like it goes very far, but it actually genuinely goes very far, 40 yards. So if you're in range to heal your teammates, then they are in range for a Cosmic Ripple. Cosmic Ripple does get its healing increased here, but both of these play into our Apex talents. So whenever you get that Benediction proc, where your Flash Heal upgrades to Benediction, you're also going to get a Cosmic Ripple out of you. So not only are you healing more with that Flash Heal, but you're also getting a Ripple helping you out in the background. Remember, background healing is busted, so Cosmic Ripples working for you in the background is always going to be helping you out. It's never a hindrance, and you don't even really have to think about it. The second rank of our Apex talent simply says that the Cosmic Ripple healing is increased, and all healing we do is increased, with that rank 3 saying that our 2 major cooldowns will have various methods of giving us Cosmic Ripples. Divine Hymn, every time it pulses, will give us a Cosmic Ripple, and I'll show you what that looks like later. Or during Apotheosis, and during Apotheosis, Flash Heal will permanently be Benediction. So while you're in your empowered state, you're going to be sending out a ton of Cosmic Ripples because you're casting Benediction all the damn time. So your Apex talent and the Cosmic Ripple, it doesn't seem like anything you have to really think about. It's just going to be working for you a lot of the times in the background. But whenever you see that special symbol pop up for Benediction rather than Flash Heal, you know you're going to get a lot more out of that button. And that's pretty important to remember. But even if you were to forget, it's still going to do its job. Now, before we get into the more complicated sections like cooldowns and hero talents and all that stuff, and maybe even our rotation, Enlightenment says that we regenerate mana 10% faster. Now, there are other talents you can grab, like a lot of players like to grab Uplifting Words, increasing our critical strike chance of Serenity and Sanctify. However, until you're really, really good at Holy Priest and you're playing in a coordinated group, and I cannot stress this enough, regenerating mana quicker is your only form of extra mana help. Every other healer has a way to get their mana back in some way or another, but yours is quite literally, well, you just get it back faster. And while 10% is nice, I'm never saying no to this, it requires you to play smart with your heals. This is why you can't just spam Prayer of Healing. It'll have the downside of eventually you'll run out of mana. But if you use your spells effectively, you'll get your mana back. There's even fights where you'll notice that you get all of your mana back whenever they start because there's only a small amount of intense healing, and then everything's kind of chill for a little bit. You might go 2 or 3 pulls that were like exhaustive and you used all your resources, then you enter a boss fight that like is kind of a pushover for you and you're like, oh, all right, well fine, and you get all your mana back. Now let's go over a quick basic rotation. And healers don't really have a rotation like DPS do or tanks, where we're always rotating the same moves back to back, maybe in our damage moves, but realistically, you're kind of reacting to situations and using your tools and combos and interactions you might have in your talent tree with your spells for maximum efficiency, and that's about it. So here's your Holy Priest tutorial, your Holy Priest rotation. If you see someone low on health, heal them. Ta-da! And I'm not even kidding. In downtime, get Prayer of Mendings out on your teammates so that they're ready to jump around when the damage hits. Press Flash Shield to deal with smaller amounts of damage or to do the bulk of your healing instead of using your cooldowns. If someone takes a large amount of damage or you're expecting to do a large amount of healing, use your Serenity to kind of kickstart the job and get some healing done. You can also kickstart with Sanctify if you're running Oracle, or you can use those Flash Heals you start with your Serenities to power up your Prayer of Healings. And then you can use those Prayer of Healings later when there's a large amount of damage on everyone, and you can kind of spam them back to back to keep people alive. Now you're going to have cooldowns and other fancy moves here, but yeah, kickstart the healing, kickstart your damage, and whenever people get hurt, swap to healing them. One little tip for you new healers out there, you don't got to worry about like the last 5 to 10% on a person. Like sure, if someone's missing 10% of their health, throw them a heal. but that's never more important than other people taking more damage or even you doing damage, because a lot of specs in this game have a way to self-heal a little bit. Maybe that's through something called Leech, where their damage and healing will be converted back onto themselves with a small percentage, or it's going to be through a move like Impending Victory, a move that warriors can use to heal a large chunk of their health bar, and if they kill their target at any point in time, the move resets itself, so they can kind of snowball their health at the end of a pull. So you're not always going to be worried about the last little bit of people's health, and sometimes players will heal themselves when the going gets rough to make your life easier. So just be aware of that. If you're over worried about keeping all the health bars clean, I think that's, again, a trap that new players can fall into. Now, there is a point at really high level play where maybe your poor monk is going to take 98% of their health bar. You know, because you've seen it before. So they must be at 100% health if they get targeted by a mechanic from from like the boss, let's say. Okay, that can happen. That will happen. But ultimately, that's super high level play and won't be relevant to a new player. So if you're like getting into WoW and you're like, that sounds terrifying, not yet. It's not happening to you yet, girly pop. I promise you. And by the time you're there, you will have been gradually moved in to more difficult content where that starts to show up. Next little healer tip, if somebody dies instantly or within like half a second or so, like an unreactable amount of time, remember you have cast times, server latency, input latency, right? Give yourself roughly a second. If somebody dies within like half a second or a second or even instantly, it probably wasn't your fault. This game is complicated. This game is hard. And there might be a lot of reasons that a player dies. So like, it's good to investigate why someone died, but usually it's like, oh, they stood in a circle and it blew up and they died. Or, oh, they didn't do this mechanic, or they fell off the map, right? Like, you have a move that can save someone from falling off of a map if you're fast enough, but it's not necessarily always your fault. So when people die, try to figure out why they died using any details or resources you have in game to kind of look at it. Maybe if you get into combat logging, you can look through the log and figure out what happened to them. But realistically, it's complicated. And some people might be like, healer, why didn't you heal me? And like, they got flattened by a boss in one hit. Like, what were you ever gonna do? The one sneaky thing that'll pop up into you is your Dispel. Purify says that it dispels magical effects off of your teammates and also diseases. Every healer gets a version of this move. Yours is a little bit weaker and we'll explain why it is later, but magical effects are the important part. Sometimes a player gets a magical debuff on them, and it's your job as a healer to see that they have that magical debuff, recognize that it's doing damage to them, and remove it off of them. It's also not going to go on cooldown unless you actually dispel something. So it's pretty safe to use. If you'd be like, oh, should I dispel that? You can hit dispel, and if it doesn't work, you may be like, oh, okay, that wasn't for me to dispel. Usually magical dispels are blue, diseases are brown, and there are other magical effects that can be dispelled, or not magical effects, but other like debuffs that can be dispelled by other classes in the game. But healers are the ones typically with magic. In fact, all the healers always have a magic dispel. And now, final, before we start getting into the nitty gritty, or I send you off to go press some buttons, I need to get this out of the way. I just made an entire video essay on this, so if you'd like to watch me ramble about why I love pugging, go to my second channel, Bowser the Dragon. But realistically, playing in pug groups, pickup groups, right, where you queue into a leveling dungeon, or you go into Mythic Plus, or you delve with some randos, people you don't know, or maybe just you and a friend go off to play with other people you don't know, that's called pugging. Pugging is harder than a coordinated group. 5 friends who can all talk to each other and chat about the game, maybe they have various levels of skill, can work together to solve problems. There is less damage coming in, and there's less problems when the whole team is working together and knows everything perfectly. But not only do you probably not know everything, neither do your teammates. And when you pug, that's increased to a very high level where players might just make stupid mistakes, or mistakes they don't even know why they did something wrong. They didn't read the text on something. They didn't, understand a boss mechanic. It's fine. Players will have various skill levels, and that's totally okay. Just try not to get in your own head that you must be bad at healing or something because someone died, or somebody made a mistake, or you made a mistake. Pugging is the hardest way to play this game, and while it is also a very frequently played way of this game, right? Like pugging is something that happens all the time in WoW. I just don't want you to think that you're somehow magically bad at the game or something. It is genuinely harder. If you watch like a professional player play World of Warcraft with their team, it's gonna look night and day, very different from the way you play World of Warcraft, especially if you pug. And that's just because Pugs are going to behave differently. You'll have to react to different things. It's hard. Holy Priest is really good in pugs, actually. I think Holy Priest is one of the better pug healers because it's so flexible at saving people's lives and kind of pivoting from issues and trying to save the day in a moment's notice. Okay, we're going to get into hero talents and cooldowns and all that good stuff, but if you're leveling or you just want to start pressing some buttons, I think you sufficiently know enough buttons to go press. Like, the only thing I didn't cover is your powered fortitude buff. This is your raid buff. It gives everyone 3% stamina, which means 3% more health. If you're on Archon, it's 5%. Woohoo, always give this to your party. But I think, seriously, if you want to press some buttons, you can. But stick around with me. We're going to go over our major cooldowns and these hero talents. First up, let's talk about Power Infusion. This is a 2-minute cooldown that gives you and somebody else 20% haste for 15 seconds. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty here. Haste is a wonderful stat. It'll cool down specific moves with green text on them. Figured I'd let you know that. But the big thing that it does for you is it makes you faster. And 20% flat haste is very, very, very quick. So how do you use this? Well, I recommend as a new player, use it as a healing cooldown. When the going gets rough, pop Power Infusion and you'll simply be going faster. Healing faster means you can save people's lives quicker. It doesn't actually directly make your healing more. It means that you do more healing more frequently, right? You do the same amount of healing more frequently. I hope that makes sense. But as you get better at the game, players will actually request Power Infusion from you, and certain damage specs in the game are better with it than others. Your cheat sheet right now as of recording this video is Windwalker Monk and Unholy Death Knight are your best friends to give this to. But use it for yourself first and foremost, and as you get more comfortable, you can throw it away for a teammate. Now, let's say you cast it on yourself, it'll always find a teammate to go and give it to. If you cast it on a teammate, it'll always give it to you. So you're never going to be without this buff. You're just going to have an easy mode and a hard mode method of getting this thing out. And yeah, at high levels of play, this does get assigned to large pulls and big cooldowns and put on a specific player to do a lot of damage, but you don't actually have to worry about that too much as a new player, and thankfully most specs in the game benefit from flat haste, so this will always be helping somebody out to some capacity. Even if it isn't a whole lot, it's just good that you use this move. Next up is Guardian Spirit, and we got to talk about this one for a moment. It's typically a 3-minute cooldown, low mana cost. For the next 12 seconds, the target that receives Guardian Spirit will take 60% more healing, so if you hit them with a spell, just amp it up by 60%. If the target would die, the spirit will sacrifice itself and restore the target to 40% health. Do note, that is a cheat death, so if somebody dies, they will not die, and Guardian Spirit will be consumed. Now, you can also cast this while stunned, by the way. It's a very important note. So this seems pretty strong, right? It is. It's also off the global cooldown, meaning you can use it while pressing other buttons or finishing the cast of another move. It's quite strong. Now, it won't work while you're casting a spell, but it'll work in that lockout. You see the little spinny thing that is going on? That's called your global cooldown. You can activate Guardian Spirit while that little spin is going on. However, there's 2 talents here to talk about. I'm sending you all with Guardian Angel. This says that when Guardian Spirit saves a target from death, it doesn't expire, so I'll stay on them the whole 12 seconds. But if the target doesn't die, its cooldown becomes 60 seconds. This means that Guardian Spirit becomes a 60-second healing amp. You can use this to save your tank. You can use this to save your teammates who are about to die. You can even put this on yourself for a little bit of cheeky self-healing that I'll explain when we talk about defensives. Now, this is better, I think, in almost all scenarios, hypothetically, but there's also restitution. I don't recommend taking this unless you're playing super high level content where there's a high chance of you dying, because when you die on Holy Priest, you turn into a pretty little angel, you're totally invulnerable, and for no mana, you can just cast your spells. So you can just slam people with heals for a little bit, no questions asked, but then you die. Restitution says you don't die, and you get a debuff for 10 minutes saying that you will not be saved for the next 10 minutes. This is an excellent talent at high level play where there's just a chance something might just kill you. Yeah, I think Restitution's quite good. But new players will often grab this because it's a bit cheeky. It sort of lets you get away with being bad. And I'm going to tell you right now, you got to make some mistakes in this world. You gotta mess up to learn. And I don't think Restitution's that good because it might teach some bad habits. But they're both totally viable. So if you're like, screw you, Bowser, I want Restitution, I want a cheat death, go for it. I just think the 1-minute healing amp from Guardian Angel is very, very powerful. So keep Guardian Spirit around somewhere useful. It's an incredibly powerful move. Alright, 2 more major cooldowns to go, and then Archangel, you get a special one called Halo, but we'll talk about that later. Divine Him, or as I frequently refer to it as Divine Them, is a 2-minute cooldown that'll channel for 4.2 seconds, healing everyone in the area for a large amount. Each heal that they receive from this pulsing channeled heal will increase the healing received by 4% for 15 seconds, stacking. This means that you can get quite a lot of extra healing on targets. If you're coming from older days of Holy Priest, Divine Them channels really quickly these days. And even if you have to end it early, that's okay. You got bonus healing on people. Now you can use things like your Sanctify and your Serenities to do a very large amount of healing. So it sort of is a gigantic kickstart. This is a real full throttle, hit the boost kind of healing session where you hit this, you heal everyone up, and then now you're doing more healing. You're powered up as a Holy Priest. The better you play, the better this cooldown is used. However, there's 2 talents here. I highly recommend for most of you, take this one. It makes it a 2-minute rather than a 3-minute. Seraphic Crescendo, I think I said that right. Seraphic Crescendo, whatever, is incredible. On Archon, you're almost always going this, and that's because the talent next to it's a little more Oracle coded, while channeling Divine Him, place 2 stacks of Prayer Mending on up to 3 allies within range every 0.8 seconds. This is a lot of healing, by the way, but it does make it a 3-minute. Feel free to experiment with this, especially you Oracle players, but I often find that the 2-minute Divine Them is significantly better for new players and for people who like to pug a lot, because it helps you cover more mistakes if a dungeon's like particularly disastrous. And then right below it in the talent tree and on my bars next to it, Apotheosis. This is a 2-minute install style cooldown where you will become a pure form of Holy for 20 seconds, which on Drakthir means your wings will turn a beautiful gold, increases your cooldown reductions from your Holy Words by 200%, and reduces their cost by 50%, which I believe makes them all mana positive. Yes, it does. Extremely mana positive. So here's the thing about Apotheosis. All it does is cool down your Holy Words 200% faster. How strong can that be? Well, on Archon, we tend to take a talent that also gives us 10% bonus healing and 3 super strong 25% stronger Prayer of Healing, so it does genuinely give you something to save the day. But even if you're running Oracle and it doesn't do anything fancy for you, what it is doing for you is letting you use those Holy Words all the damn time. And this works on Chastise, Serenity, and Sanctify. So I'm going to pop it, my wings turned gold, and now I'm going to crank my Serenities, right? Let's get all this healing down. I have Benediction always online right now, so you can see all those cosmic ripples. But look at how fast I'm getting Serenity charges. I just got another one, 20 seconds off my cooldown, now it's up, right? This is incredibly quick. Same with damage too. If I hit Chastise, Holy Fire, right? That cooled it down really quickly. Granted, it did run out, but that's 20 whole seconds of just being stronger. So Apotheosis is a good cooldown if you can wing it correctly. Get the heals in the right places, save people's lives. Yeah, Apotheosis will do a lot of work for you, but it isn't a rewind or a revival where you press a button and you save the day. You got to put in the work with Apotheosis, but when you put in the work correctly, it's so incredibly rewarding. And so I highly, highly recommend you use Apotheosis often while learning, while playing the game at a low level, so that you can get really used to using it and just how fast it gives you your moves back. At a higher level, you'll either be assigning it places to heal through dangerous mechanics, or you'll be using it as a clutch save the day button, especially for you Archon users. Now, it is finally time to talk about the hero trees. So I just want to note that again, Archon is definitely the beginner friendly one. I recommend that for new players again, because you always have access to Prayer of Healing. That's going to be some AoE healing for you, and one more 1-minute cooldown that's quite strong. So I think it gives the ultimate flexibility to a new player to have all the tools for the job. However, Oracle is fun. If it even seems remotely exciting to you, I think it's worth learning. I think Holy Priest players should probably learn both, as they're both pretty strong and have cleared extremely high level content. But I'm going to start with Archon and then move over to Oracle. Archon has a new cooldown called Halo. It's a 1-minute cooldown with a 40-yard range. Now, just note, it does damage to enemies and heals your allies as it expands out from within you to 40 yards, it won't grab anything you're not in combat with typically, as long as the game is behaving. So don't worry if there's like a patrol behind you within 40 yards that you would hit with this. It won't actually get mad at you unless it got mad at someone else, you entered combat, then it would suddenly start working. So Halo comes out from within you and then pulses out to your allies. And with all these talents, let me summarize what they all do. Feel free to read through them though, of course. But you're going to have your Halo pulse out multiple times, and then they're always going to come back in as well. And any target struck with your Halo is also going to receive additional healing whenever they get hit by the Halo. And I believe that stacks up to 5 times. And then furthermore, every time a Halo happens, it'll create a Surge of Light. Surge of Light being your instant cast flash heal or instant cast prayer of healing. So, and that talent's right here, by the way, Spirit Wall is what allows your prayer of healing to utilize a Surge of Light. So when you combine all this together, it's not the most special hero talent in the world, but having an entire extra cooldown means that, let's say there's a boss. This boss is going to do a lot of damage every minute. You could send your Divined Them first, then your Halo, then your Apotheosis, then your Halo, and then you're back to Divined Them. And I think that's one of the best benefits, is that you get an extra layer of cooldowns to help make your life a lot easier, save disasters, and clear some unbelievable heal checks later in your dungeoning and delving life. So I actually really like Archon for new players, despite it seeming a little complicated. The only other thing I should mention right now is that Powered Fortitude grants you an additional 5% stamina. So instead of it being 3% that it grants you, it grants 5%. So that makes your whole team a little bit bulkier. So this is a really nice talent. Okay, let's move on to Oracle. Oracle's the slightly more complicated one. It takes all of these Prayer of Mending talents, so let's go through them again. Renew is a heal over time that's applied sometimes by your Prayer of Mending, but whenever you use Serenity, it'll apply to a single target. When you use Sanctify, it'll apply to everyone hit by the Sanctifier, up to 5 targets. Players with a Renew on them receive 10% more healing, which is another reason why Sanctify for you is a true kickstart of a heal. Renew also can be planted with Prayer of Mending. I mentioned that earlier. Here's where that talent is. But you take all these mending talents because Oracle Tree plays heavily into Prayer of Mending. First of all, you get an additional charge. Your Renews last longer. Your Prayer of Mending is an instant cast heal, which we talked about earlier. And whenever you Prayer of Mending someone else is going to receive 4 stacks of Prayer of Mending, which really helps you ramp and get a lot of these out to a lot of players. Your Prayer of Mending just simply does more healing. All damage by Smite, Holy Fire, and Holy Nova are increased by 40%, which means you hit like a gosh darn truck. And then the primary target of your Prayer of Mending also gets a Power Word shield. This is a Discipline Priest ability, and it's not a small shield. Like, that's an okay amount of shielding right now. And we're never saying no on a 8-something second, 9-something second cooldown. That's pretty good. The other really big talent here to mention is Piety. 20% of overhealing is done, or 20% of overhealing that you do is redistributed up to 4 injured nearby allies. So what this means is that you're going to overheal. I don't ever want you to worry about overhealing as a healer. The only time you're thinking about overhealing is when you didn't have enough resources to save the day and you have to think to yourself like, okay, did I like spam heals when I didn't need to? Was I wasting things when I absolutely didn't have to? Overhealing is something that I think players worry about too much, and I don't want you to worry too much about it while you're learning. But you also do a lot of overhealing on Holy Priest, right? You're going to hit people up to like 100% and beyond because of your mastery. You're going to hit a fat crit Serenity on your tank that receives boosted healing and heal them up to full. Your Trail of Light is always healing. Well, it might be healing a target that's already healed, and that's totally fine. Anytime that happens, 20% of what was counted as overhealing will make its way to your teammates that actually need healing. You're not going to play around this, so to say, right? You're not going to be intentionally trying to use Piety to your advantage. It's just that it does work for you in the background all the dang time. Like, for instance, all those Cosmic Ripples you put out, well, they're not healing everyone all the time, right? Like, what if most of your team's healed? Okay, well, now all that Cosmic Ripple healing is getting 20% of it sent into the target that does need healing. So it's incredibly useful. Oracle's harder because you just don't have access to as quick area of effect healing. However, it is really good at fast, quick, and efficient single target healing, and Prayer of Mendings being significant parts of your healing profile from its spot heals to its background healing means that you actually get a lot of use out of Oracle for playing smart, but you do have to think ahead a little bit and get a little creative. That's not a bad thing. It's a good skill set to learn. And again, I think everyone should learn Archon and Oracle at one point or another. I just don't think this is the easiest for a beginner. Despite it having technically less buttons, I find it to be a little bit confusing still when you're new and you're trying to navigate all this stuff. But don't be too scared of Oracle. It's really, really fun to play once you get a handle on it. We don't have too much more time because I wanted to make a quick video, and it's not quick as I'm learning and as you're probably learning. So let's get running through the rest of these moves. First things first, Fade is a really cute little move, 20-second cooldown, and it's going to reduce enemies' detection range against you for 10 seconds. It's also going to remove snares off of you if you take this talent, and reduce damage by 10%. That doesn't seem like too big of a deal at first, like sure, 10% on a 20-second cooldown, what's not to love? But we also have Protective Light. Casting Flash Heal on yourself reduces all damage you take by 10% for 10 seconds. You combine that with Fade, you have a 20% damage reduction whenever you need it. And furthermore, whenever you Flash Heal somebody else, you Flash Heal yourself for 20%. And this does qualify as healing yourself. So by casting Flash Heal ever, you're giving yourself 10% damage reduction. That's a pretty powerful effect. And Fade is off the global cooldowns. It's possible to say Flash Heal right into Fade, and now I have a 20% damage reduction on me. That is a really, really powerful effect to have every 20 seconds. You're a lot more durable than you might think on Holy Priest. Now, if you need something a little bit juicier, we got Desperate Prayer. This is going to increase your maximum health by 25% for 10 seconds and instantly heal you for that amount. Again, this is fantastic for when the going gets rough. You can just pop Desperate Prayer, bring your own health bar back up, and you have to worry a little bit less about yourself. Gaining health is technically a defensive, so this is really nice, but it's also off the global cooldown. So it is possible to Flash Heal, Fade, Desperate Prayer almost instantaneously and get a very large amount of damage reduction on your much larger health bar. So highly recommend you keep these buttons somewhere useful where you can use them often. On the crowd control side of things, you have Psychic Scream. This is a 40-second cooldown, 8 yards around you, fears all targets. Now, this move doesn't work on undead and most robots. So when you're in Pit of Saran and you're like, why can't I fear anything? That's the reason why. Psychic Scream as a fear will only work for just a moment on enemies. But let's say all 5 enemies are now casting on your poor hunter, and you don't want your hunter to die. Okay, well, Psychic Scream. They'll all have to retarget mobs and find new targets for their attacks. So maybe they all target the hunter again, but realistically, this can help you shuffle up the spell order. So if something bad's about to happen to the party, sometimes a Psychic Scream is exactly what the doctor ordered. Sometimes your triage isn't healing. Sometimes your triage is stopping the spell cast, which also counts for chastise and just doing damage sometimes. Also, Angelic Feather is a move that you can place down on the ground, and when someone grabs it, they're faster. Look, I'm gonna be real. I have a macro. I'll put it on screen real quickly. Where is it? It's just a show tooltip / cast bracket app player end bracket Angelic Feather, and it just makes you faster. Holy Priest movement isn't the best in the game, and you're going to find that out very frequently. So use this move quickly, position well so that you're not in a terrible spot in the first place. And I don't normally ever recommend like a best race ever for a spec, because realistically, the races in this game don't matter to such a large degree that you will only be selecting them at the absolute highest form of play. But if you want my suggestion, I think Pandarin's really good for the extra crowd control. I think High Mountain Torrent for Bull Rush is really useful because it counts as both a dash and a knockdown, which is an incredibly unique form of crowd control, so you can usually land it on people with no problem whatsoever. Or Drakthir here, because Drakthir, while they do get the pretty wings during Apotheosis, also they have a double jump, and it's a little bit of extra movement speed when you need it, and I find that's very useful. And also the 3-minute wing buffet to knock enemies backwards in an emergency. So it kind of gives me the best of all worlds, but realistically, if you're like, I really want to play a dwarf, or I really want to play an elf, well, I won't stop you. Like, realistically, play whatever your heart desires here, as I think it's a little cringe when anyone tells someone a WoW, like, oh, well, you have to play Night Elf. Like, no, you don't. Shut up. Are you a top 0.01% player? Out of here. Next up on our list is an offensive Dispel. It's called Dispel Magic. You'll hear this referred to as a Purge a whole lot, and that's because of the Shaman spell. This just removes a magical benefit to an enemy. So if this Dungeoneer had a magical buff, it would appear right here. and then you could hit Dispel Magic, and it would remove it off of them. There are a lot of shields and damage amps for the tank and things that are really bad, and a lot of them can be dispelled with a quick Dispel Magic. Sometimes you have to press it a few times, but typically it's pretty beneficial. If you need to get rid of a lot of them, you can use Mass Dispel. This is a 2-minute move. Try to get the tooltip back up for you. This is a 2-minute move, and within that range, it'll dispel ally magical effects and enemy magical effects. Just heed my warning, if you dispel a bunch of shields that do damage when they are dispelled, all at the same time with Mass Dispel, you will kill everyone. Just keep that in mind. You have Mind Soothe. This reduces enemy aggro range if they're affected by the spell. Sometimes players will ask for a Mind Soothe from you for a skip, but realistically this isn't used very often, but it's good to know you have it. The final thing I'm mentioning in this video, and of course you can go through all the other spells we have, like our Mass Resurrection and everything, but it's Leap of Faith. This just lets you pull someone to you. Note that it doesn't typically interrupt spell casting. So if somebody's casting a Pyroblast and you grab them out of the Pyroblast, they'll finish their Pyroblast. So you don't have to worry about it ruining Christmas. It can. You can ruin Christmas. You can get people killed with this. I have, 100%. Be mindful when you use Leap of Faith, but excellent for saving people's lives, especially people who get knocked off of the platform and sent into the abyss. Like, you might be able to pull them back and save their life. That's going to do it for Holy Priest. I mean it. Do damage when you can. Heal whenever people's health bar goes down, and get faster. Learn where the damage is coming from. Kickstart your heals with holy words, and use those cooldowns whenever you need that extra boost. Remember, they power you up. They don't necessarily fix the problem for you, but that's what makes Holy Priest so elegant. This is the easiest healer in the game to learn, in my opinion. I find it very, very easy to just start pressing flash heal and getting people saved, but honestly, the skill ceiling of this class is really high, as getting as fast and as efficient as possible really makes the difference. And the fastest, quickest Holy Priests that really know what they're doing will look to you like absolute masters of their trade. They'll look peak healer when they're blasting through stuff. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, it'd mean a world to me if you could subscribe. And also, I do have that second channel if you want to go check out some video essays. I have a lot more cooking over there soon. This is to me at the start of the video when I said this was going to be quick. I think that was really funny. It's still going to be an hour-long edit. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all soon.